If you guys want me to review the Dingo Pictures Anastasia, the onus is on you guys. I'll review it if this video gets 10k views. Hiya, I'm Kay, and we're going to watch the Dingo Films version of Anastasia. Hello, how are you all doing? I'm suffering, thank you for asking. In my previous video, I reviewed 3 of the 4 Anastasia adaptations that I had listed in my video. And then I said if my video got at least 10,000 views that I would review the very interesting production that is the Dingo Films Anastasia. And I am nothing if not a woman of my word. I can't say I haven't learned lessons from this. I've learned to raise my expectations. I've learned that much like the crowds of the Colosseum in the Roman Empire, people enjoy watching others suffer. But in all seriousness, I want to thank you all for watching that video, and for all the new subscribers that I have, I want to welcome all of you. And if you're just here to watch the video, I'm still happy to have you. Thank you for being here. But you guys also gave me a lot of lovely support in the comments and on my other videos, so thank you very much for that, and I'm excited in some odd twisted way to dig into the Dingo Films Anastasia for you all. So the Dingo Films Anastasia was released in 1998 as a mockbuster version of Don Bluth's Anastasia. And on tvtropes.com, it's quoted as being very loosely based on the story of the real-life Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanova. And frankly, there's not much more of an introduction that can be made. We just have to dig into it. So we start off with a bunch of hand-drawn and watercolor backgrounds, and yes, I do want to poke fun at it, but also I need to humble myself because I'm not visually artistic. These probably would look better than anything I could do myself. And that's one of the only nice things I'm going to say about this movie, because the next painting is slightly crooked, so you can see the background or table of whatever they were using for their animation. Then we get our first bit of animation, and there's this open carriage, not just coming in from off screen, but slightly through part of the picture, as though walking through some kind of portal. And then we meet our first character, the Grand Duchess with very rectangular eyeshadow, who's yelling at her footman Vladimir. And I'm also pretty sure that these 2 characters are voiced by the same voice actress.
Vladimir, Grand Duchess.
So it turns out they had a cast of like 3 people, so yeah, there was a lot of repeats. So, makes sense. She wants Vladimir to ensure that all of her stuff is properly packed. And she's speaking very quickly, so it's kind of tricky to understand what it is that she's saying. I catch that her husband is dead. Will this come up in the plot? Who knows?
Well, better to be safe than sorry, so my deceased husband said, God rest his soul.
But in real life, this is true. The father of Tsar Nicholas II, Alexander III, died when he was quite young of kidney failure. Well, quite young. He was about 47 years old, but that's like a young age to die. Also, they refer to her as the Grand Duchess, but this is meant to be the Dowager Empress Maria Fyodorovna, because the title of Grand Duchess would have referred to the daughters of Tsar Nicholas II and Alexandra Fyodorovna, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. Then there's a man off to the side in a uniform standing next to a very scary looking dude who I'm going to assume is Rasputin. The guy in the uniform is like speaking in lowercase, and he's just like, I want her to go. The best thing about the winter is that my mother goes to Paris.
Oh, if she would only go.
Then this little blonde girl who's been sitting off to the side starts to giggle, and the Grand Duchess tells her off. And we're introduced to her as our film's namesake, Anastasia.
What are you laughing about, Anastasia?
So a very interesting character design for her off the bat. We kind of tend to get a redheaded or brunette Anastasia. This one, they're really departing from the canon by making her blonde.
Yes, Granny.
And the Grand Duchess tells her off for being chatty, and also tells her to not call her Granny, but by her full title of Grand Duchess Olga of Romanov.
Please do not call me Granny. I am Grand Duchess Olga of Romanov.
It's not correct at all, but if I get caught up on this point, we're never going to get through this video. Because again, the Dowager Empress is Maria Fyodorovna, and Grand Duchess Olga would have been Grand Duchess Olga Nikolaevna Romanova. And Vladimir's wax cycle is something.
Wow.
And then the Dowager Empress asks her son if he would like to go with her to Paris. And he's like, no, I can't, because the people are planning a revolution in Moscow, and I have to stay here.
Drive me away, me the Tsar of Russia.
Which, first of all, the capital city would have been St. Petersburg, not Moscow, and at this time it actually would have been renamed to Petrograd, because St. Petersburg had a bit more of a German name to it, because Peter the Great actually moved the capital from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and he named the city itself St. Petersburg. He had traveled a great deal across the continent and was heavily inspired by Western Europe. So then during World War I, while Nicholas II was on the throne, there was a great deal of anti-German sentiment because they were fighting against the Germans at the time. So they renamed the city Petrograd to sound less German. And second, this Tsar is already a a touch more grounded than the actual Nicholas II. Because at the time of the revolution that resulted in Nicholas having to abdicate the throne, in real life Nicholas was over 500 miles away from the capital, because he had made himself commander-in-chief of the Russian army, despite many people thinking he was ill-suited for the position. So at least this Dingo Films version of the Tsar is staying closer to the action, even despite his vocal fry, which I only point out because I myself am a vocal fry queen. And then Rasputin finally speaks, and it sounds like he's attempting a Russian accent, but I can't really understand what he's saying other than, oh, the people are stupid.
Isn't that the people want to rule themselves? Ha! The people are stupid.
And then the Dowager Empress is like, you need a new advisor because Rasputin has the face of a traitor. To which Rasputin laughs and chuckles very evilly. And I agree, he has the face of many things. A traitor, a sleep paralysis demon, the personification of an entire studio's bad decisions. The Dowager Empress then gives Anastasia a pendant and tells her to wear it for as long as she's gone. Which seems super generous considering how persnickety she was with Anastasia in the beginning, but what do I know? And the voice actors are choking on all of their French words.
Compris, ma petite?
The Dowager Empress is then finally leaving and she's saying goodbye and she's like, see you guys later, don't trust Rasputin too much. And then her line just cuts off.
You, my son, make sure you not trust Rasputin too much and...
We then cut to the next scene. I said, we then cut to the next scene. Can we cut already? The servants are all chilling and they're like, Rasputin is useless. He promised us that the Tsar would go to Paris. And there's this guy just over in the corner who's making the pizza. And he even does the little Italian hands.
The Tsar lives like a god and the people in the country are starving.
The people and the country are starving? The cook also says that every day they throw out kilos and kilos of food and that he would join the revolution if Rasputin weren't involved. Which, again, we're getting such an interesting view of Rasputin being pro-Bolshevik in these films. Because Rasputin was having much more success being in the pockets of the royal family and nobility. And he was largely disliked among the average people. Vladimir says that Rasputin's job is to drive the Tsar away, and then lo and behold, Rasputin himself actually shows up. And again, Rasputin speaks, but I can only catch, like, the last sentence of whatever it is he tries to say.
If you were always shouting, away with the Tsar, away with the Tsar.
And so the other servants insist that they can take down the Tsar without the help of Rasputin. But then Rasputin's like, no, it's okay, I'll get rid of the Tsar tonight. And then he's tiptoeing down the palace hallway at night. He laughs evilly and carries a comedically large bomb like he's Batman. And then he rolls the bomb presumably outside the Tsar's room and it explodes and we see him laughing evilly again. And then the whole palace is blown up. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at this animation, but like, thank goodness the flames are all moving in sync, because that's how fire works. The peasants outside are like, well, everyone's dead because no one survived. There's rain falling from the sky. That must mean that it's raining.
I can't help thinking, I think it looks like arsony.
And then we cut to Anastasia crying over in the corner. And it looks like she was the sole survivor, and all the peasants assume that she's the daughter of a servant. And then, oop. Never mind, Rasputin apparently did survive. And he's like, Anastasia survived? No, I must change that immediately. Then one of the peasants goes up to Anastasia and he's like, hey there, what's your name? And she's like, I don't know, I can't remember anything. And then Rasputin out loud is like, oh, good, she can't remember anything, then she won't remember that she's the Tsar's daughter. And I'm calling this out immediately because the Romanov family was like the most photographed family of their generation. The children of Tsar Nicholas enjoyed taking their own pictures on their Brownie Kodak cameras, and their portraits were constantly posted in newspapers. People knew what they looked like. But then the peasant guy is just like, well, you can't be by yourself. Tell you what, how about you come back to my place, you get some sleep, and in the morning after you've rested, you'll remember everything. My tripod is shaky. Then Rasputin walks over to the servants, and the servants are like, oh shoot, Rasputin's coming.
Oh dear, Rasputin's coming. I don't want to see him. Let's disappear.
And apparently for no one surviving the bombing of the palace, a lot of people seem to have survived. And Rasputin's like, well, I kept my promise, the Tsar's dead. But they're like, hey man, not cool of you to try and blow up the palace. Vladimir's like, I was the one that managed to wake up and get everyone out in time.
If I wasn't such a light sleeper, we all would have been burned.
Rasputin then says that the condition of their deal was that if he killed the Tsar, then the servants would ensure that the people of Russia vote him in as president.
He had agreed that I make sure that the Tsar disappears, whereas you make sure that the people will elect me as their president.
I beg your pardon? Why are you partnering with servants to get a political position? You should be partnering with people who are already working in the government. Because at least the Rasputin from the Golden Films Anastasia did his political backstabbing with people who had power. He used his hypnotic laser powers on government officials. But then one of the servants is like, well, we can't control who the people vote for because it's a democracy. And Vladimir's like, good luck to you, buddy, because I'm not voting for you.
Well, I definitely won't elect you. You almost killed us.
And then Rasputin's like, I will get revenge on all of you.
But he literally doesn't. In fact, we never see any of them again.
Then passing through another side portal of the watercolor background, we see the old peasant man and his dog, which is definitely the dog that appears in the animal soccer game that Dingo Films also did.
What the hell? What in the world?
I would say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it's very hard to say that this isn't broke. Then Anastasia's crying because she doesn't have a name. And the peasant's like, well, the explosion wiped away your memory. That happens. Maybe you'll get your memory back and then maybe you won't. Who knows? Very reassuring stuff. There's a magpie outside my window. Hello. Then Sasha barks, but from like 500 miles away. Then Anastasia agrees to stay until she can remember who she is, and she picks a new name.
Could my name be Asha? Of course, only until I remember my own name.
Probably inspired by the fact that the dog's name is Sasha. Then 6 years later, but in German, so 6 years later. I don't speak German. And Rasputin is upset that once again he has not been elected president. He also has a shoulder rat now, so that's interesting.
That this mob has not elected me again.
And frankly, the Anastasia spinoff I want is Rasputin campaigning to be a government official. Show me Rasputin going door to door with flyers. I want to see Rasputin in a public debate. And then there are a bunch of weird animals just out and about.
Democracy isn't worth anything. Let's have a revolution.
Frankly, that line itself may have made the entire viewing experience worth it. And Rasputin's like, but we just had one. And the rat's like, well, let's do another one. Which, to be fair, Russia was going pretty hard on the revolutions at this time. Rasputin then summons a babushka out in the woods. And she's so weird that even the wolves are like, yeah, the vibes are bad. Let's get out of here. I'm assuming they meant this as a nod to Baba Yaga, but once again, what do I know?
I have just heard you have failed in the elections a second time.
The babushka was in on Rasputin's failed presidential career? Was she the one sponsoring his campaigns? I'm babushka, and I approve this message. And then Rasputin is upset because he hasn't come to power like Babushka promised he would. Because the Babushka promised him that when the Tsar and his family were dead, that he would become president. But then the Babushka is just like, ah yes, but they all need to be dead, and Anastasia's still alive, so you need to do something about that.
Kill her!
It's a very interesting concept to have a Wicked Witch character in the mix of all of this. I don't really know what to make of it, but it seems original. And Rasputin's like, but it's been 6 years, I don't know where she is. And Babushka says, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not even mincing words, that's a direct quote.
That's your problem, my dear.
We also don't see Babushka again. She just disappears into the Nethersphere.
Everyone is then moving their mouths but saying nothing as we see a German poster offering a reward of 10,000 rubles to find Anastasia. Is Rasputin the one offering this money? Because that's a lot of money for what I'm assuming is the year 1923. Imagine the presidential campaign you could run with that kind of money, Rasputin.
The old Grand Duchess in Paris still believes her granddaughter is alive.
Oh, wait, the grandmother is the one offering the reward. And speaking of Anastasia, there's she.
10,000 rubles?
That's a man's voice. Did they just rip off the design of Don Bluth's Anastasia and make it a man? He's also got his hands stuck in like this punk rock pose. And like Dmitri in Don Bluth's Anastasia, who is a con man, this character is a thief and the people in town run him out for his crimes, and so he goes on the run.
There he is, the thief. Stop him.
Eh?
His name is Boris something, and he's robbed everyone in this presumably small Russian town that's also probably Moscow. The entire movie seems to revolve around either Moscow, St. Petersburg, or Paris. And they all agree that he needs to be stopped. And he runs into the wood and finds a knockoff Bambi, and he's like, hey Bambi, you're lucky, you just get to chill here. I have to run and go off to St. Petersburg. And then he goes off and knocks on the door of a small cottage.
We don't want to buy anything.
I don't want to sell anything. I just want to take shelter here. Please let me in.
Okay, that bit was actually kind of funny, not gonna lie. He introduces himself as Boris Slovaki, and the guy's like, okay, cool, I know your name, so you can stay in my house, but be quiet because my daughter's already asleep. And then Sasha's barking again, and I realized Sasha's barking like that dog in Grown Ups that got his vocal cords snipped. But look, Anastasia's outside playing with the bird like a Disney princess. Then Boris comes out and Sasha immediately starts barking at him, and Boris is like,
Say, can't you tie up this monster?
Sir, this dog is the only thing in the movie that looks remotely like it should. Okay, maybe not.
You heard Sasha. He is really afraid of you.
Yes, I am too! Then Anastasia, or Asha, I'm going to use them both interchangeably, so don't call me out in the comments, goes inside to make breakfast, and Boris then notices that she dropped her pendant. And he's like, ooh, this looks valuable, and he, dink, takes it.
Swiper, no swiping!
And he's like, this is an expensive necklace, it could pay off all my debts.
Be quiet, you stupid mongrel.
Sir, this dog is the most quiet dog you'll ever see. And then just as Boris is planning to use the pendant to go and pay off all of his debts, Anastasia comes outside and she's like, I dropped my pendant. Have you seen it anywhere? And he's like, nope, definitely haven't seen it. Bye. Then the same horse that carried that carriage from before is now pulling a cart. Is there only one horse in Moscow? Because you know what? Rasputin could easily be elected president if he ran on the campaign that he would bring more horses to Moscow. And of course, we're in Russia, so we gotta go to the vodka store. Then Boris is going to sell the pendant and the sellers are like, where did you get that?
Why would I lie to you? You've known me for ages.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, an old man gave it to me for chopping wood. Yep, definitely for chopping wood.
I chop wood for him. I chop wood for him.
Anyway, how much is it worth? And they're like, oh, it's the same one as in the newspaper.
It's the same pendant like the one in the newspaper.
Keep your mouth shut.
And then Boris is like, wait, that's the pendant that the Dowager Empress gave to Anastasia. That means Asha is the real princess. And the sellers in the back are like, we'll have to tell Rasputin about this.
Wow.
Got a little bit of funky jazz music playing in the background. Then Boris goes back to the cottage from before and he sees Anastasia or Asha. He's just like, hey, Asha, what's up? And she's like, you're a liar and a thief.
I haven't stolen your pendant, but when I was at my home, I noticed that it had fallen into my boot.
And where did you get it? It looks expensive. And she's like, I've always had it. And he's like, well, that came from the Tsar's family. And they're like, what? And the old man reveals to Anastasia/Asha that he actually found her the night that the palace exploded. And Asha says she still can't remember anything. And they pull out the newspaper with the picture of Anastasia. And they're like, yep, that's you. So you're definitely the princess.
That's unbelievable. She's genuine. Asha is genuine. The genuine Anastasia. There.
And so Boris is like, tell you what, you're the real princess. You come to Paris with me. I'll take you to your grandmother and then we can get that reward money. Then the old peasant man is like, I'm going to go to Paris too. So they all go. Then Rasputin's talking to the two vendors outside the vodka store and he's like, Boris has Anastasia? And they're like, yep, he's on his way to Paris now to get that reward. And Rasputin's like, okay, I'm going to go. And then the seller's like, hey, what about the 100 rubles that you promised me? And Rasputin's like, nah, bye. And then the rat suddenly flies and lands on his shoulder.
Hush.
Finally, we have a different horse this time. And the three of them are spending so long going to Paris that the winter seems to end. Also, notably, no border control for all the other countries that we're passing through on the way to Paris, because it's just one straight shot. Rasputin is then following them in this sick chariot and presumably one of the only other horses in Moscow. The group of them then decide to stop and Boris is like, I'm gonna make a borscht.
Borscht. I will make a really nice borscht.
And Anastasia, Asha takes Sasha for a walk. Rasputin has worn his horse down completely. And then meanwhile, Chip or Dale is just jumping along.
Or it gets dark.
The rat then runs into Sasha, which apparently I learned from a Wikipedia article that the rat's name is Kirk. Okay. So Sasha starts to chase Kirk, but then Rasputin scares Sasha and Sasha starts to walk backwards away.
You bloody mongrel. You're almost eaten. Don't do that again.
And then Anastasia's like, how dare you swear at my dog? I'm gonna go back to my father and Boris. And Rasputin's like, I'm so stupid. That was Anastasia. I think he says that he should have stabbed her, but again, I can't really tell what he's saying.
A short stab of the Saban.
And then Anastasia's like, I saw a man with a rat. And then Boris is like, did he have a long nose, look thin, and have a black beard?
What is he doing here looking for you?
Rasputin.
And Anastasia's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. Everyone in Moscow laughs at him. Even though this old man is like, oh yeah, Rasputin's the one that destroyed the Tsar's palace. They're all just laughing at him, despite the fact that he's led a terrorist attack before. And then they're like, he also apparently wants to kill the Tsar's daughter.
I don't want to be killed by Rasputin. Do something about it, Boris.
Does anyone, Anastasia? Does anyone want to be killed by Rasputin? Also, word gets out fast. How did they find out about this? Because they've been on the run for like the whole winter. Then Boris is like, I've got it. How about we watch and wait for him to pass? And then he'll go ahead thinking that he's chasing us. Meanwhile, we're going to be here chilling and eating borscht.
Good heavens. If you keep on like this, you will become a real couple of gangsters.
You become gangsters by eating borscht? So they're hiding out in the woods and they watch him go by on his chariot, and then they're like, all right, cool, we're good. And eventually Rasputin's like, I should have caught them by now. What's going on? Next thing we know, he gets to French border control and he's like, let me through, I'm in a rush, which is a foolproof way to get past border control. But then they end up arresting him for insulting the civil servant. And so when Anastasia and her group passed, they see Rasputin being arrested. And she's like, what's going on, General? As if she like knows these French officers. It makes it sound like she's familiar with them.
What's the matter, General?
Anastasia.
And Rasputin's like, I've caught you. And then he suddenly whips out a sword and starts to attack the horse. But then one of the guards points a rifle at his nose.
He won't molest you again so quickly.
So I know they were going by perhaps the original definition of the word, or perhaps it was a translation issue, but that word choice just makes me uncomfortable. So then Rasputin gets arrested and we're now in Paris.
Are you happy to be in Paris?
Oui.
And they're trying to figure out how to find the Grand Duchess. And Boris goes into a Dior shop to ask where he is, and he's just like, yep, she's just right around the corner, so we're good. And so they see one of the Grand Duchess's servants at the door, and he's like, oh, really? You're Anastasia? Really? And they're like, yeah, she is. There's more awkward French.
Mais qui, Anastasia the 25th.
And then the grandpa is just like, you know what? We were right when we had a revolution in Russia.
You arrogant snot.
Which is a wild thing to say in front of a member of Russian nobility. But then Anastasia shows the pendant and then they stick Sasha on the servant. The Dowager Empress is in like, ew, Russian peasants. What are you doing here? And Anastasia's like, look at this pendant, comrade.
Comrade? What do you mean, my comrade?
And then the Empress is like, that's the pendant I gave Anastasia, so you're my Anastasia. But then Rasputin is suddenly in the house.
This is Anastasia indeed, your granddaughter.
Rasputin! I was right all the time!
How did he break out of French prison? And he's like, I made a mistake by not punching this girl. And he's got another bomb. And he's like, farewell to all of you. But then Sasha thinks that the bomb is a toy and she ends up nudging it and rolling it in the direction of Rasputin and it blows him up. But thankfully, it only blows up the part of the room that Rasputin was in. So his first bomb was powerful enough to blow up an entire palace. But this one, only the front door of an apartment. And Boris is like, oh, we were lucky. And Anastasia is like, how can you say we're lucky when Sasha is dead? Wait, so Sasha's actually dead?
And you wanted to go to America with me?
But since when? This is a new plot point. What? So apparently at some point on the journey, Boris and Anastasia were like, we should go to America. And the grandmother is like, absolutely not. And then the old man's like, but why not? And the grandmother's like, but how can you leave me here alone?
Well, I sense the worst.
Me too, Boris. I was sensing the worst from the moment I clicked on this video. Not Sasha, covered in soot. Oh, come on. Then they're suddenly on a very old-fashioned ship heading to America. And there's the French servant from before, and now he's the one suddenly dealing with all the bags.
Cases and haven't forgot any of my hat boxes.
And Anastasia's like, I remember this. I've heard this all before.
To America, democracy, Indians, gangsters.
And then that's the end of the movie. Thank goodness. My relief now in finishing this video is knowing that I will never have to watch that movie again. However, I do have some other ideas for videos like my Anastasia ones. There are some animated Titanic movies that I would love to review. I'd love to brush up a little bit more on the history of Pocahontas and John Smith, so that way I can kind of review some of those animated movies with a more critical eye. I have some historic video game playthroughs that I'm working on as well. I'm very open to any ideas or suggestions that you guys might have. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend Mags where we review period dramas and rate their historical accuracy and content, and it's more unscripted. We have a really good time. It's very funny. If you go to the podcast on Spotify, we're currently reviewing The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but I'm posting the episodes slowly onto YouTube as well, so at the moment it's still showing Bridgerton Season 1. Then for my short form content, I post more historical facts and reviews of different museums and historical sites that I visit. I had exactly one comment ask for a laptop sticker tour, so I'm gonna give that. So here we have Pedro Pascal fruitily drinking from a paper cup. I have an Anne Boleyn sticker. I have this Diet Spooky Light Soda from my friend Mackamo. She's a wonderful artist. She also did this sticker of Medusa here that I have. This sticker from Central Oregon. I have a little Alphonse Elric. I have a Daddy Chill. I have this golden Egyptian style sticker that I put on upside down and I now cannot get off, so it's stuck like that. This one in the middle is a young Maria Nikolaevna and it says God save the Queen over her eyes. My friend gifted me this one here. It says praying on thy downfall. I have this Artemisia Gentileschi, Judah Slay and Holofernes, and it says slay. A Stardew Valley +1 Ho proficiency. And then a Game Grumps, I seek the truth, where's your dad at? Because if you know, you know. So if you enjoyed this video, bite your thumb up at me, sir, and toss me a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.